I recently read a post from a member of my Facebook community who had been to London on a date with her partner, and this was the place, back to the place where they'd had their first ever date. And she was really looking forward to it. She couldn't wait to go to London and she was going to have a great time. She'd been alcohol free for a decent period of time and thought it was going to be a wonderful day. Yet when she got there, after a short period of time, she started to have an urge to drink and she couldn't understand where it was coming from. And this can happen to people in different situations, different places, and I want to explain why it happens and what you can do about it. So the exact same thing used to happen to me if I went to a sports event, a concert, hotels, and in fact just about anything. I would have a strong urge to drink. It can happen to people who travel on trains, people who go to certain locations over and over again, because what happens is we form a strong association with that place that we're visiting, that location, and we associate it with alcohol. Over time, we believe that we can't travel on a train unless we drink. We can't go to a fancy hotel unless we drink. We just won't have fun. We can't go to a concert and truly enjoy it, or a sports event, unless we have 6, 7, 8 pints of beer. That was absolutely what I used to do. And we ingrain that belief into ourselves. Over time, the more that we do it, the more it becomes a firm belief. Now, the reality is that before we drank, we went to those sort of places and we had fun and enjoyed ourselves without the need for alcohol. And in fact, if we'd never started drinking at all, we would have continued to visit those places and had a great time without alcohol involved. But what happens on the first 1 or 2 occasions that we go to these events? We have a great time. Let's say you go to a football game and you have a great day. You drink beer while you're there and you really enjoy yourself. Your team wins. You have a wonderful time. Sure, when you get home, you feel tired and maybe you did some things you regret and wake up with a hangover after an argument with your partner the night before from all the alcohol that you had. You still form an association that alcohol was responsible for you having a good time. You totally dismiss all the other information and evidence that told you alcohol actually made it a worse time because you had an argument, you had a hangover, you felt tired, you weren't being your true self while you were there, and you weren't fully connected and totally present. But we dismiss all of that. We give alcohol the credit for making the event, for making that football game a great time. And this is where the problem begins, because then we start to believe that the next time we go, to make it a good time, we need to have alcohol again. We start to give alcohol the power. We hand it over. And once we give alcohol the power, we start to believe that we have to have alcohol if we go and do that thing, whether it's to a concert, a trip to the city, a trip to a hotel, or a journey on a train, or whatever it might be for you or in your own personal situation. We give alcohol the power and we allow that association to form. Now, the good news is those associations are fairly easy to break. The first thing is to actually notice that the association has formed. And then my invitation to you is to treat it like an experiment. If you're a member of my Facebook group or if you're in my program, what we tend to do in there is people will become accountable when they're heading off to an event that they know they formed an association with. Somebody recently went to an ice hockey game and there was a lot of fear and worry coming up because they'd drank at pretty much every ice hockey game they'd been to as an adult. The association was really strong. So my invitation to her was to treat it like an experiment. Make yourself accountable in the group. Tell everybody that you're going and make a commitment that you'll post a photo while you're there, and then go out into the field, grab the data, find out what it's really like to go to an ice hockey game without alcohol involved. What comes up? What feelings come up? Do you have a better time or do you have a worse time? Spoiler alert, you will have a better time, but you need to go and find it out for yourself, and that's how you start to form a new belief that actually That game, that ice hockey game, that football game, that train trip is more fun when you don't have alcohol involved. So it's about breaking the cycle, but treating it like an experiment. And then you report back to your tribe. If you're in my Facebook community, you would share with the group exactly what came up for you as you went on your experiment. And almost always people report that they had a better time. There are occasions where people find it challenging and they need to go 2 or 3 times to really begin to break that association. And of course, the more we do it without alcohol, the more we do break that association and realise that actually alcohol was making me have a worse time. Alcohol deprives us of being truly in the moment. Yet we're spending our money on these days out, on these sports games, these concerts, these train journeys, whatever it might be. And we're not fully present when we're doing it. We don't get the absolute most out of it. Suddenly, alcohol becomes the centre of the show. And it's all linked back to that association that we're not going to enjoy it as much unless we involve alcohol. But when you put that on the stand, imagine it in a court and you're acting as the defence and the prosecution. You put that belief on the stand that drinking alcohol makes the football game more fun, for example, and you look at the evidence. Well, sure, maybe for the first 10 or 20 minutes it's more fun as the euphoric feelings kick in, but after that, is it really fun? Rushing off to the toilet every 20 minutes or so, that was what happened for me. Starting to become aggressive, needing to keep going to the bar to top up and missing the game. And then afterwards, the journey home. You can't drive yourself if you've been drinking, so that's a massive hassle. And you might get into an argument or a fight on the way. And then you might argue with your spouse or partner when you get home. Plus the hangovers and all the other regrettable behaviour that comes with it. Believe me, when you put it on the stand and you cross-examine it like a defence and prosecution, those beliefs start to look really shaky, and you realise that they're not as black and white as you might think. So start to consider how you can break any associations that you've got. The key is to go into those situations without alcohol, but treating it as an experiment, thinking about it in advance and paying attention to what comes up while you're doing it. Gather the data and then report back to whatever sober community you belong to. And if you're part of my YouTube channel, if you subscribe, you can post a comment on one of my videos and let me know how it went for you when you went out into the field and gathered your own data about something that you have a strong association with. I would say in the early stages of sobriety, it's actually important to protect yourself. I didn't go out socially for a couple of months after I quit. I made a conscious decision to avoid the pub and to avoid any places where I thought I might be tempted to drink. Instead, I simply replaced it. Instead of going to the pub, I'd take my son to the movies or we'd go bowling together. And actually, I probably had a lot more fun doing that rather than sitting in a pub and drinking drink after drink and all the regrettable consequences that would come with it. So think about what you can replace things with in the early stages. And then when you feel ready, that's when it's time to start exploring those associations, gathering the data and getting out into the field to treat it like an experiment. And right next to me is a video that will help you navigate your way through social situations when you stop drinking. You can click on that now and watch it straight away. And make sure you also subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'd love you to be part of this community. And I'll see you on the next video very soon.